Oh. Hello there, everyone. Julia Simas here for the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. I am here today with Agent 33, Olga Morales. I have to say again, we haven't done a cosmic transmission for a while. That's because Melbourne's going through a very hard time and we're really feeling it. We didn't feel like doing it, did we, Olga?
No.
We've been on our own kind of strike, actually.
Yes.
So, been very difficult time, not just for us, of course, in Melbourne, Australia, or Australia and many other places in the world. It's not complaining for those reasons, but for many others in this time of justice, as we've just entered the Libra month and the next quarter of the year, as the sun has passed the equinox point, coming south again, yay, to the southern hemisphere. So we're going to be talking today about this next quarter. As we've done it sort of, for many years with the CIA, we look at the year ahead from the Aries ingress, and we look at the quarters throughout the year to give us a kind of a taste of, what's ahead in that time. And of course, one of the main things you look at is the ingress chart, when the sun actually, first moves into the sign of Libra. And just when you think about it, Libra meaning balance and justice and equalizing things and rebalancing things. Already this week we've had a few earthquakes. Well, there's earthquakes happening all the time, really, but one in Melbourne, the biggest in forever on record.
Since 1966.
Since 1966. So it's kind of, very, very significant and a big sign and a big signal of a rebalance very much needed. I just want to say hello to those that have joined us, and sorry for putting it off from Friday. We were supposed to meet for the equinox and do this, but again, we've been kind of busy. And one of the big reasons we've been busy is because we've just launched a new website this morning. We were very daring to, let's say, get it in before Mercury retrograde. Like, we're in this, you've felt it all week. It's the Mars Sun getting closer together. It's Mercury stationing retrograde, square Pluto stationing retrograde. And when I talked with my webmaster, I said, can we do it by the equinox? And, I was told yes. And so, but the delay is not unexpected. But again, we've just launched it just before Mercury does go retrograde. So the stationing is pretty potent and powerful. And anyway, it's going to make our work a lot easier, a much better for interacting, and a lot more to come. So I'm very, very excited about that. So do go and check it out, okay, when you can. So I'm going to share my screen, Olga. And just, of course, most of you remember Olga because she's been doing these cosmic transmissions with me throughout the year. And so anyway, we're having a lot of good times doing this together. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So let me share my screen so we can show you. There's a lot of charts we're going to be doing today, looking at a lot of charts and a lot of maps and so on. And that's because, hang on, if I go from there, sorry, I'm just adjusting my screen. Yeah, so we're a little bit late from the equinox, but anyway, nevertheless, the energies of the equinox are still very much here. And October is probably one of the most intense months ahead. So we'll be looking at that into more detail as we go. So, just checking how. Okay, so this is just a sneak peek at the website. Again, really kind of sharp and quick and easy to use. The other one was about 10 years old with many updates in between. But, you know, of course, to keep up with times, you need to revamp and redo, and a lot of resources and energy have gone into this. So for those of you, it features our agents a lot better, and all the work that they've, or not all the work, we had to take off. You know, we've kind of left the last 3 years of work in a sense, because we're much more interested in the updates of the future, what's coming up, how we can live with astrology, how we can guide people with astrology and make it part of their lives, not to be scared of it, you know, very much embrace the co-creative intelligence that is astrology and the reasons why we use it. So fabulous people involved. And just a little bit of a promo before we start, because some people, you know, it's not their thing what they're going to listen to with us today. But we have launched the Academy, which is, of course, accessing all our archives of fantastic material from the fabulous agents that we have, and special guest teachers for specialist topics of all kinds, and being able to access about 75 webinars at any time, plus 20 new a year. So it's kind of growing all the time, although we do take off some stuff, you know, and replenish. So it's a moving fractal of information and astrology. So do join us, because it's great value for, you know, less than $12 a month for all that content. And of course, it's on sale now for, as we usually do, around the equinoxes and solstices. So do get in there to get your membership and, you know, support the CIA and the good work that we do, and help us to go a bit further as well. So thank you for joining us. So here is, before I think we launch into, what you call it, Olga? Sorry, the equinox chart is, let's just go back a bit to look at the Aries ingress, because the Aries ingress, when the sun first moves to Aries, is it's almost overrides the whole year, as in we look at the Aries ingress to tell us about the flavor of the whole year. Okay, and we look at all the other ingresses at the cardinal points, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, to tell us a little bit more, you know, kind of detail about the quarters. Some astrologers use the Capricorn ingress of the year before to tell about the year ahead. So, you know, I mean, you know, the preferences are, you'll get to know them the more you do them. Isn't that right, Olga? Like we all kind of might find out, you know, oh, that's what mundane astrology, you know, has always done, or the ancients did it this way or that. But, you know, what I've found, and especially in the last few years, is that ingress charts, and perhaps especially astrocartography, are much more overridden by eclipse charts. What do you think, Olga?
Yeah, I think the eclipse charts are really more informative. Like they give you the location more, I think, of what's going to be happening or where possibilities happening. And
it really kind of intensifies the, you know, and we'll see, it really sort of really tells us a lot more about where to look or where the hot spots are, doesn't it? So if we just look back at the Aries ingress for a bit, or the Aries ingress chart, you know, it's been quite an unusually, you know, stormy year, right? And I remember Olga and I, when we looked at the Aries ingress, we went, oh, shit. You know, Venus is conjunct the star Shiat, which has a lot to do with water and stormy seas, so to speak. And it's certainly been that kind of a year, hasn't it?
And shipwrecks. Remember when that big tanker got caught up in the Suez Canal? You know, like there's lots of things.
Was that this year? I kind of forgot if that was this year or last. It was this year. No, you're right. Yes.
Like when you get the old mundane books and you read about the fixed stars, and you know, I love putting it in, because they all that information is from years and years of observation, right? And we have to honor that. And I love putting it in there. You know, like what shipwreck and getting caught, and it was just like there's so much that happens. And every time we say shiat or shits, that we kind of we know it. we know something's is going to happen. Well, we don't know,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's also at the end of the zodiac, isn't it? So it's a very pivotal point, you know. So anyway, Venus was there. Of course, the sun was close by, and Venus and the sun were about to make their star point in Aries.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Venus is known to bring water. I mean, when you look at the
she's a moist planet.
Yeah, and she's in her, she's in Pisces as well, next to Neptune.
Yeah.
So, bringing it all together.
Yeah, yeah.
And then if you put it on the astrocartography, they're all going to cluster together over certain parts of the Earth.
Yeah.
Culminating,
show the highlights.
And like it's the most fascinating type of astrology, in my opinion, and that this is what drives my research. Apart from the stock market, I love mundane astrology. I've moved away totally from personal astrology. That was when I started, because I was at uni of psychology. I was doing all the personal stuff. But, after I've been doing it for 30 years now, this is my focus now. I just love world events. And,
well, we're glad to have you and your expertise with us, of course. So just again, let's think about how stormy this year has been in so many ways. There's the write-up from Astro Gold from Roderick Kidson, an Australian astrologer that sadly died about 5 years ago, I think. Anyway, the disaster star storms and tidal waves and so on, contending forces of the heart and head, gain from chaos. That kind of gives me a bit of solace as what's going on. Something good will rise out of what we are learning through these times. But what's really interesting as well is that Mars, the North Node, and the Moon were all together in Gemini. And just have a think about how divisive the world is on opinions, pro and not, like all kinds of things. The media, the circus going on out there about what the truth is. It's very Gemini. We don't know. We have to kind of absorb so many things. So the moon's very important about the flavor of the time and, the people's kind of attitude to things. Okay. Mars is very significant there as well, because he's conjunct Aldebaran, the star, very much associated. Well, Mars is, of course, fighting for ourselves, sticking up for ourselves in opinions and all that type of thing, in Gemini, of course. And the courage to do so, of course. And of course, what we've seen a lot of this year, especially in Melbourne, is police violence, and even separating the police force from not wanting to, to go ahead with their instructions and what they want to do and so on. And of course, the Mars and Saturn square, Uranus and Saturn square was just a few weeks before, I think exactly. Or a few weeks after, a week after. It was very close after this equinox. So, the Saturn-Uranus signature is a big one throughout this year and even into next year, which I'll show you later. So, let's keep going. We can kind of notice that. And just wanted to bring in something quickly that if we look back at this chart, the 13 degrees where the nodal axis is, the karmic sort of shifting point eclipse area of the chart, and 16 Gemini, is the nodes of what we call the planetary nodes of Venus and the planetary node of Uranus. So we've got this signature and big theme that, the big attention for the year is about, our values versus our, freedoms and the clampdowns of what we're being told to do. Is that a good thing and a bad thing? Again, we're very divided about how everyone thinks about these things and what should be allowed to happen in a time of, some, global chaos. So
that's
the other thing.
Can I say something?
Yes, sure. Yes.
That's my MC.
What? Oh,
13,
there you go. You have to stand up for your values. What's important.
13 Gemini. Yeah. That's why that people can't shut me up. And well, there you go.
And then we've got Saturn hanging around the nodes of Neptune as well. He's at 7 degrees of Aquarius at the moment. So it's the polarity, of course, right? And we've noticed that Saturn on this node is the Bitcoin nodes as well. So it really responds to that. So watch the Saturn past this point again, coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
And we've also got Saturn very close. Pluto's there close to its own nodes, but it's actually closer to Saturn. So we've got these levels and signatures. And of course, Saturn and Pluto is control, the power of control. And, you know, we're seeing that in its most sort of ugly light in many ways. With, you know, against, you know, the people that are not liking what's happening either. So this is the eclipse chart that was, of course, a few weeks, you know, 10th of June this year. And Olga, we did a talk about that, you know, on the eclipse, and it just kind of keeps telling us more, doesn't it? You know, because the next eclipse is solar eclipse is 4th of December. It's like one takes over, where they're both activated for a while. We won't look at the other eclipse right now. But the moon, it was the Cancer solstice was just before, and it was a very watery solstice chart as well, with the moon in Scorpio, Venus in Cancer, I think it was, Jupiter in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, and you kind of looked at that chart and went, oh, you know, there's a lot of water going on there. But then if we look at this eclipse chart, we can see Mars and Pluto were opposite, so very volatile signature. Again, you know, for looking at the 6 months ahead that the eclipse rules, and even the times coming in before that, right? The Saturn square Uranus and Ceres. When Mars came up to square this point in Virgo, just in August, is when Hurricane Ida happened. And this is where Olga and I, you know, talked about the eclipse and pinpointed this area of the chart where Hurricane Ida happened. And of course, the eclipse degrees went straight through there with Mercury and Jupiter, again, you know, crossing Jupiter. So, you know, the eclipse lines crossing Jupiter in the place where a huge hurricane happened. And Olga, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you wrote there about the eclipse was also conjunct Orion?
Yeah,
right?
that's like I've got one of my books and it talks about eclipses, and if anything's attached to a fixed star, and then it's got a couple of little things about in terms of astrometeorology, what you might expect. And Orion, apparently, if they're the rules there that are written there, is connected with really strong winds and turbulent, you know, windy. And so we made an assumption looking at the chart, didn't we?
Yeah.
We said, look where it's going through. You know, we said there's likely to be a hurricane season, a strong one, which we sort of said that happens often, but it happened on the exact day. So, you know, like, you can't make this up. If we hadn't have done,
day,
right. If we hadn't have done that, like, and presented it prior to it happening, everyone would say, oh, well, yeah, it's easy to find afterwards. But if we want to use these rules to make forecasts and predictions, you know, that's why we do them earlier, to show how powerful astrology actually is, if you know what you're doing, of course. So, you know, that happened at the exact time, you know, like, it was just like,
this is what, you know, I mean, again, we're still astounded anyway, aren't we?
That's the thing. We get excited about it because we're thinking, this really actually is amazing. It really works. And we can pinpoint areas. It doesn't mean, as I say all the time, it doesn't mean that it has to happen there, but it's highlighting an area where it's possible for something to happen. And that's why I put them up there. This is a possibility. Watch it. Right.
Yeah,
that's what we've
always sort of said, you know, send resources to that area. We'll need it. You know, get prepared in some kind of sense. Better to be prepared. And, you know, again, with astrology, we do that so we can be prepared for a lot of things. But this is I know it's hard to see these charts, but this is the eclipse chart that happened. And, you know, following this, you can stop this maybe later and look it up closely and whatever. But, you know, the eclipse also started over Northern Europe. Okay, so this is where it was up on the midheaven during its peak. And that's, of course, where the big floods were as well, for, you know, unprecedented floods in Belgium and northern Germany and so on. Venus also went through New York, where, again, floods were a big thing just recently. Pluto, Mars, lines went through BC, Canada, and Saskatchewan. Sorry, in the USA, where Pluto Mars lines and eclipse lines crossing Saturn in Saskatchewan, where all the children's graves were uncovered in the churches, of the indigenous peoples. And like, you kind of think, oh my God, Pluto is about digging something up, and it's just these awful things that we're still finding out. Saturn Eris line is really interesting, crossing eastern Australia, where we are known for the best lockdowns in the world. What a label, eh?
Yeah, great.
Great. Come to Australia. It's fabulous down here. Anyway, Pluto Mars Paran also through Afghanistan. And of course, what happened there, mass exodus, leaving crisis. Neptune was through Haiti. And now, again, this is Olga. The Aries ingress chart does not tell me all of this.
No.
Right?
No. Yeah.
So I'm hooked now on eclipse charts.
Well, that's why, can I say something? You know how W.D. Gann, I have to always bring him in, because he used eclipses a lot, and his coded novel starts with an eclipse and ends with an eclipse, and he talks about him in his book, right?
Yeah.
So they are for mundane astrology and world events, which will impact the stock market anyway in some way or form. It's because people panic if something happens out there. You feel fearful and you panic, and generally people start selling if something happens, right? So this for me is it. This is it. Anyway, it's exciting.
Anyway, we just wanted to sort of show you that, because again, Olga and I are always comparing notes. But let's have a look at just what happened this week in Melbourne. I remember I just put up this thing because there was a full moon in Pisces conjunct Shiat as well, right? So reflecting, connecting the equinox to the Aries equinox, really, by a full moon, just prior to it, because it was at 29 degrees of Pisces. And of course, we had an earthquake. Sorry. We had a big earthquake that shook, me out of bed. I was actually just getting out of bed, and like, what was that? I knew what it was, but I thought it wouldn't last as long. But of course, you look at the chart of that time, and it's the nodal axis exactly on the ascendant descendant. So angles are very, very they show up to be very significant at earthquake times.
Yes. And it's like someone pushed the button and said, let's have it happen now. You know what I mean? It's just so in your face. It's just like, like we couldn't have made this up. But the nodal axis on the ascendant descendant comes up a lot in earthquakes. I studied a lot of earthquakes. That's another one of my passions, right? And so, the other thing was, it was because it was obviously the full moon, but also the square between Mercury and Pluto, which is an intense signature. It doesn't necessarily
too. They're both like grinding to a halt.
Now the other thing is, when we look at mundane astrology, there's something called geodetic equivalence, okay?
Right.
Which is like starting from the zero. Aries starts at Greenwich, right?
Yep.
And then the lines go across the world. This is what Safarial was using. I believe Gann was using it too. So according to that system, Australia is ruled by Sagittarius, right? Okay, because of how it lines up. That's the rising part of Australia, Sagittarius. The midheaven, or especially for Melbourne, is Leo, because if you look at, because it's 144, which is 24 of Leo, right? So this, to me, it's got the axis, even though it's not exactly on the degree what it is, it's still there. It's
pointing to that axis.
Yeah, right. I mean, we've got the axis of Leo and we've got Sag. So we've got the two fire signs, which actually represent Australia for this eclipse. I mean, sorry, for this earthquake. I like to look at that because I've been studying a lot researching what system gives me the best answers, and I really love the
Yeah.
geodetic system. I
Yeah.
really love it, right? So I always like to, but this is already telling me that, hey, shit, that works. I shouldn't say. I should say sheet.
Shit.
Shit. We've got to laugh. I mean, we have to laugh because,
You have to
we've
laugh.
been
Yeah.
locked down, and we're in such a
We've been locked
state.
down.
We've been locked down that if we don't laugh a little bit, it's just like, we are going to go a bit
Yeah.
mad. So astrology gets me through, being able to study, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it also brings me to a point. As I said earlier, the sun crossing the equator is significant. Mars is with the sun.
Yep.
We've all, stationing planets, as we talked about. Someone was asking in a group the other day about, which one of those is the earthquake sort of signature. And it's like, well, it's all of them together. You can't just say, oh, we see the nodes at this particular thing. It's when all of these things come together. I mean, this is the beauty of astrology, or having it work, and it's about synthesis. It's about synthesizing the whole story. You can't really eliminate, this is why it's a whole circle. You can't really eliminate things and say it's because of that, right? The other thing that I saw in this earthquake chart, of course, is Uranus in sesqui quadrant. So, making a midpoint to the sun and Mars in that time.
Yeah.
So, which, using midpoints has really been Olga's, influence on my work, on my studies as well. So, let's just move ahead. And then, Olga, the midpoint chart here.
Yeah. I mean, I think this signature here, for the earthquake, is that, Venus was opposite. Venus is opposite, and it came to the midpoint of, see, in with midpoints, there's something called at this time on this day, right? At this hour, right?
Yeah.
So the location is the MC. So the fact that we've got the Venus Uranus midpoint and the MC there, that signature for me. I mean, a lot of earthquakes have something to do with Uranus because it shakes the earth, right? It's in an earth sign. It creates, right? It's unstable. And Venus, it doesn't really matter what planet it is, but there's often a trigger. It has to be something happening in there.
Well, it's the quicker moving planets, so the triggers, right?
Yeah.
Like, the longer standing ones where they are, Pluto's been there forever, and, Saturn's slow mover. But it's the triggers that come through.
They come along and it's like an injection point that it's just waiting for something to happen. And that's how I time everything. You need a faster moving planet to trigger something. So but you can see that it comes to the midpoint of Mars and Neptune.
Next one.
Okay. So this is what it looked like going over Melbourne and through, but remember the earthquake was also even felt in Tasmania, in New South Wales, and also in
even
South Australia.
South
Australia as well. So
what's this line here, Olga?
Let me see. I can't see. They're the Parens.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Is that got the moon? I can't see.
I think it's the moon. It's the moon.
The moon and something.
Yeah.
I can't see. Hold on. Let me get mine up. And so the parens mean when the planets are on an angle at that point. Two planets are on an angle at that location.
Right.
So look at it going right through Melbourne. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You can't make this up.
Well, it also extends to where the epicenter was, just above
Mansfield. In Mansfield, where there's supposed to be lines underneath the mountains there. But the fact is, this earthquake was so deep, it went down 10 kilometers, which is thus massive. So it's just gone right down. That's what they say. So it's huge. For us, it's a huge earthquake, I remember an earthquake in Melbourne when maybe I was 15 years old, and I felt it in my bed, but it wasn't as big as this one.
No. I saw one about 20 years ago in Melbourne in the same house I live in, and, the whole house kind of seemed to go but this one was just a lot more intense.
Long intense, yeah.
So, Olga, this is an interesting correlation to what's happening here in wonderful Melbourne, isn't it?
So So if you haven't been watching the news, or maybe I don't know if they've been putting it in mainstream media overseas, but anyway, we've been having a lot of protests in Melbourne because the government's mandating vaccines for a lot of people, and one of them is the tradies, which are the construction workers, or the work in the building sites and so forth, you know, and they had a protest, and it was massive, right? It got a bit violent, or well, a bit aggressive at the beginning when they got angry, and then there was a huge march the next couple of days that went all through the city, and now every day they've been protesting.
It's popping up everywhere. Yeah,
everywhere. They're doing little splinters, but that they're not even the tradies anymore. They're just people that you know, being told they can't go to work if they're not vaccinated, right? So there's apparently teachers and nurses joining now, but the fact is, we've got a bit of a we've got riot police, you know, shooting at people with rubber bullets and
sprays and
people spraying it, and when they're just standing there doing nothing, they've got no weapons. All they've got is little signs saying, you know, my body, my choice, or freedom, or whatever they're putting up. They don't have a weapon. But they're being treated like, I don't know, terrorists or something. Anyway, so someone said to me, you know, we've got to look back in history, what was happening in our chart. Obviously, we've all been looking at our Australian charts, and, you know, could we have predicted all this stuff? But, you know, the whole thing about the union and the tradies, that's a big union thing, and their flag, part of the union movement is a Southern Cross flag, right? And that flag was when we had the Eureka Stockade in Australia, well, in Melbourne. It was it wasn't Melbourne, it was Ballarat, but it was Victoria.
Ballarat,
okay?
Victoria.
And they fought up it was the miners had a protest. A protest is more than a protest, because it was a battle. A few people died because the government at the time, or whether the council, they were not giving them enough money for what they were doing, so they rebelled, right? And so this was a big movement. This was a symbol of the union movement in a way. So I had to have a look back.
Yeah, well, I just picked out a little thing that it said about the uprising of gold miners against exorbitant prospecting, licensing fees, brutal police procedures for collecting those fees, and a lack to vote for what they needed. So sounds familiar.
Doesn't it sound like history repeating, right? So someone said to me, I just saw people referring to the protest as the Eureka Stockade, you know, and I thought, I'm going to have to put up this chart. So I put up the chart, and we don't have an exact time. I just put a midday chart, and then this painting here it's like an iconic painting, and you know, lo and behold, it's 167 years ago. That's 2 Uranus cycles exactly, which is a planet of revolution.
It's having its Uranus return.
It is, you know, like exactly.
Amazing.
You know, you can see it there, and I was just blown away by that, because I'm thinking, the uprisings everywhere that are happening worldwide. This middle degree of the fixed signs. A lot of countries have that in their chart, obviously, right? Because a lot was happening in the 1800s, and you know, and so a lot of places have got this midpoint. Or I shouldn't say midpoint. The mid degrees of the fixed signs, which is really important for global issues, because anything at 45 degrees of a fixed sign is exactly on the dial. It's exactly 45
the cardinal
degrees
0 points.
Correct. So this is a world point. So you can see how everybody, the whole world, is related to this. Okay, so this is what makes it interesting research. So I love it. So this is a real pivotal point in our Australian history, and other places as well.
And then the Neptune return, you know, 165 years, it's moved on a bit more, but it's still, you know, in great correlations there. I just quickly put together, I do know that Melbourne has a time chart, and I can't find it. It used to be Ed Tamplin was our great Australian mundane astrologer, and he sadly died 2 years ago, 2019, just before all this chaos started. So we dearly miss him. He was Agent 42 too, so he's told us, showed us, and taught us a lot. But he had a chart that he used for Melbourne, I remember. Anyway, I whatever, sadly haven't got the info. So this is just not a time chart, but if you can see, if you remember what we talked about, the what do you call it? The equinox we just had, the earthquake we just had was exactly the nodal return for Melbourne's chart, you know, of 30th of August 1835, and anyway a few other correlations, and then we do have a time chart for the Victorian chart. So again, Victoria's been also greatly affected, but it was a little bit of a later time chart, as in 1851, and if you can see in the middle there's a lot of Scorpio planets there, but really interestingly Saturn, Pluto and Uranus on the IC, and it's also, and Mars on the descendant. Now, of course, again, what we've talked about, the brutality coming from, you know, those that control us, you know, is very significant there. And Saturn's opposite that right now, okay? Yep. Saturn is exactly opposite that Mars. And, of course, 29 degrees of Aries is very much where you know, Pluto and the squares are kind of hanging around. And interesting also, Olga, you know, Melbourne's been known for wild weather, always, like the craziest weather, you know, 4 seasons in one day. And Uranus is right on the IC. So, you know, again, some really interesting signatures to look at there. So let's get into the equinox, hey? How are you all going out there? Again, thanks for being here. I hope you're enjoying what we're talking about. Someone's just saying I'm watching it closely from Rebel News about what's happening in Australia. Yeah, good on you, because the main media won't show a lot of the things that are happening, of course, as we know. So the equinox chart. So this is set for Melbourne, Australia. I meant to set it for 0 Aries, but never mind. So as we can see, the Sun and Mars are together. Sun and Mars are moving very closely together for a while, because Mars is it's the position in his cycle. When he gets close to the Sun, he's at his fastest. Now, there's something in that as well, Olga, about what's going on, you know, the kind of high intensity of everything, because Mars is really, he's in what we call his sign, opposite sign of where he rules. So Libra, where he acts differently. I mean, you know, the traditional astrology would say that he's in his fall and the Sun's in his detriment, or the other way around. I always confuse them. But not to sort of focus on that aspect of things, but that they work differently in those signs, okay? So the Sun is all about, you know, working with others in Libra. You know, it's not ego-orientated like it is in Aries. Mars, also, you know, the ruler of Aries is not, is collaborating on something with like-minded people, and fighting for the cause, I'd say. So these two are in trine to Saturn. So we're kind of getting an idea of some kind of things forming just, you know, justice-wise over the next month. We have Mercury stationing, as we said, with Pluto. Pluto goes direct on the 7th. Saturn goes direct on the 11th. Jupiter goes direct on the 18th of October. So October is pivotal, isn't it? And it's also been known as a very significant time in financial world cycles and all kinds of stuff, isn't it?
Yep.
So, you know, put your seatbelts on for October. If we look at this chart as well, we have, and again, we're looking at the flavor of the next 3 months. We have, you know, very tight Venus opposite Uranus. What do we know about, you know, Venus? She stands for values. She stands for, you know, the wants in life, money as well, what we work for. And here opposite Uranus, you know, the agent of chaos. that is, you know, sort of rising up the energies as well, that people are not just happy to sit down and watch what's going on. You know, many are very fearful and scared of what's going on, and many are very angry. So, you know, it's very, again, divided, isn't it? So, you know, looking ahead with those signatures, and of course that Uranus, Mars, Sun sesqui-square going on as well. So it doesn't feel very settled, does it?
No.
No. So the next 3 months is very pivotal to what we can expect, you know, big shifts and changes in just the way things have been, or things turning around. Olga, what do you know about on the 30th of this month, isn't it, September, we have the High Court hearing against vaccine mandates for workers. Is that September or October? September.
Yeah, September, and there's something in October as well. I think there's 3 or 4 cases going.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cases being brought forth through the high courts, which is LIBRA. LIBRA is the scales of justice. You know, to you know, going against what, you know, is unfairly you know, being forced onto people.
Yeah, we had one recently this week of a policewoman who took it to the Supreme Court because she didn't want to be vaccinated, and apparently she won.
Yeah.
So, but we don't hear it in mainstream media, right?
They don't want anyone else getting the idea.
But see, that sets a precedent for other people. So there's a whole lot of cases, and what's it called when they all get together? Just think of my own.
Civil action, or
no, when you get a group together that and everyone under one umbrella goes to court. I can't.
Yes, I know what you mean. Someone might know it in the chat.
I'm just getting a I don't know, a senior moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a few of those happening. Like, people are crowdfunding. This is a great thing about, you know, like, because they need
class action.
Class action. I mean, you know, that is so. Isn't that so much? Isn't it to do with that whole Mars and Libra sort of thing, for me anyway? That a class action. So to get a class action together, they have to get people that are obviously experiencing the same thing. And a lot of people are leaving their jobs because they're not willing to be vaccinated, right? But they need barristers. They need to pay for everything. So they're crowdfunding. And it's amazing because, you know, if I need your help, everyone put in a pool and we get to and they've been able to do it. So it's exciting. It's exciting for at least something it will happen. It has to happen. Okay.
I mean, the things that really get me when you hear things like, you know, our Prime Minister ScoMo, a journalist asked, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a month ago, I'm not sure, you know, about the mandates and how he's going to, you know, maybe actually be interested in what's going on in the country. We'll talk about that in a minute. But he was asked, so what about politicians? Do they have to be vaccinated? He said, no, it's their choice. Really? You know, I mean, seriously.
You know, and they don't. So they don't, right? And
well, that's, you know, so
what they're just saying, politicians in Canberra, they have no mandate there, but everyone else does.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, go figure, you know, how can we not be upset about what's going on?
Well, what's going to happen? A whole lot of people are going to leave the workforce, which is already happening. There's going to be a shortage of nurses, teachers, cops, police, because they're giving up as well. It's chaos. It's like palace.
So really, I mean, anyway, we're not going to tell you what to do. We're talking astrology.
That's what we're living that, right? We are allowed to talk about what's happening in our country, right?
Yeah. So now, if again, you know, so much happening in October, all those planets turning around to go forward. Venus is going to go out of bounds on the 14th of October till the 8th of December. Now, Venus out of bounds going beyond the 23.5 degree boundary of where the sun moves to, you know, go out of bounds, because she'll be going into Sagittarius, where planets go out of bounds in that sort of area of the chart near the, you know, the cardinal points.
So that will mean that will bring, sorry, Jules, that will bring water. That's going to bring rain, a lot of
as
rain.
well. Okay, more rain.
Because
It's
it's
been
southern.
raining so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it will, but not necessarily just here. That might be more in the northern hemisphere as it gets colder for them.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay.
Then we've got Mars. The Sun Mars cycle begins a new cycle. So Sun Mars, you know, in conjunction exactly. The Mercury retrograde. I mean, October's pivotal. October's a big month. You know, watching Venus rise higher in the night sky, you know, throughout the coming months, you know, is a beautiful sight to see. So I encourage, you know, go and look at Venus in the evening. She's just sort of going to get better and better at what she's doing. And of course, standing up for what we value in this world. And just a little graph that shows the cycle of Venus coming up is, hang on, I've got a point from this one, is that her maximum elongation is at the end of October as well, meaning that's the furthest she is from the sun before she comes back in. So it's like, it's very symbolic of her being stretched to the max, okay? And then she starts coming back in again, coming lower in the sky to reach her greatest brilliancy, which is, I've often talked about a flare coming back down to Earth, so really, really bright, and then sort of petering out into retrograde, which begins conjunct Pluto. So as we look at this time now to a retrograde of Venus in Capricorn, this is where we can see a fight against the system even going higher and amping up even more, okay? So again, court cases, lawsuits, you know, financially as well, Olga, you know, in that sort of sense, you know, everyone that's been affected by all of the you know, the closures and all that, the lockdown. And, you know, as anyone that's followed all the information about that, the lockdowns are very unfair to some people. And whereas to others, you know, can sort of seem to do what they want, especially if they've got money, they can travel. You know, it's not fair to everybody. And it although it's seemingly said that it's, you know, everyone's going through this, it's not.
No.
So, you know, again, all kinds of reasons to be not so, you know, let's just take it for what it is, you know, and, you know, stop complaining. It could be worse. And sure, some of that might be true, but anyway, so Olga, this is now your chart for.
I just found this when this is for Melbourne, okay, but I mean it's a chart for everywhere. But I just thought I'd put it up. When we had the earthquake, as we showed before, the nodes were across the ascendant descendant, and on that day there was Mercury square Pluto, right? But on the 22nd of October, Mars is going to be square Pluto. And when I put the chart up, look at the nodes. It's going MCIC for Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
So this is the 22nd, and you can see that the moon is just, you know, conjunct Uranus there. I mean, it will be in the day anyway. So I don't know what this means for Melbourne. I don't know if
this date.
Yeah, so watch this date, the 22nd, because something's going to happen in Melbourne. Maybe there's a big announcement, but because it's a Mars Pluto energy, that's really sort of volatile and aggressive energy. So, and you know, it's something to do with our karmic future in Melbourne. So I don't know what exactly it may be, but it seems to be. And this is at about 2:20 in the afternoon, if we want to make it exact, right? Can it be another earthquake? I don't know. It could be. But there's something volatile again happening on that day. So keep an eye out for the 22nd. I mean, you could put this chart up. Yeah, report back to what you think might happen on that day. So that's the chart, okay?
And that's the astrocartography going through there. All
so
right.
It's very, very similar to when the earthquake happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are my charts here. So what I'm looking at here is that I've done the ingress chart, and I'm just looking at the 3 countries. Or 4 countries. And recently, you know, there's a big deal in the diplomatic world, international, because Australia, it's all to do with the submarines, right? Initially, it was supposed to be from France that they were building these submarines, which was like $90 billion or something ridiculous. And for some reason, there was this a secret meeting in Canberra and the UK and the US and Australia have joined together to then they're going to supply Australia apparently with nuclear-powered submarines, right? And this is all to protect apparently Australia in the South Sea around the top of Australia and China, all that area, right? So this has caused a bit of hassle. Apparently the French president didn't even want to take ScoMo's phone call when he was overseas, which, so there's a lot of friction, okay? And so I thought, well, our chart should show that for the next quarter, we should be seeing something happening in terms of international stuff. So this is the chart I've for the equinox set at Canberra. And you can see the capital, our Australian capital, okay, where our parliament is. Now, Neptune in the 7th house, right? This is from my mundane books, right? It says, denotes treachery and double dealing on the power of foreign powers. It warns the nation to be on guard against plots and secret attacks, scandals, crime, unpleasant episodes in the law courts. Hey, I thought that was cool, right? So it's not great for it's not great for international relations. There's something, maybe when they made this agreement, it wasn't clear. We're going to find something out maybe in this quarter that's not quite right. The other thing is we've got Uranus is in the 8th house, which is what I don't like, right? And it says and don't get too caught up with the words. The old books,
8th house, 2nd house polarity with Venus as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, in the books it said sudden deaths, accident, explosion, electricity, heat, suicides, and other uncountable ways. It doesn't always have to be death of a lot of people in the nation. For me,
these are quite extreme, but
that's how their wording in those days was very fatalistic, right? But the 8th house is also the debt of the country, right? Our debt. Now, Australia, like every country in the world, has so much debt. They print money, so much debt that who are we paying that debt to? Who are we indebted to? You know what I mean? But the fact that opposition with Venus is in the 2nd and 8th house, something for me for Australia, for our markets, is going to give. It's like a debt implosion for me in this next quarter, that we're going to hear something, because they're paying people that aren't working because of lockdown. People are getting this disaster payment. Some people are getting $750 a week, right? Where's that money coming?
Well, I'm not sure, but I don't think it's as much as the payments were last year. It's actually really quite minimal. So, it's not.
No, it is. No, I know people that are getting $750
a week.
Yeah. If you're working full time, if you're casual, I think it's $450, right?
Right.
But I know people that are on $750 a week.
Yeah.
And where's that money coming from? Where is it coming from?
And then that's sort of people like going, oh, that's okay, I don't have to work and I get $750 a week.
I know, and a lot of people are getting really sort of used to it.
Yeah. It's really strange.
Anyway, so at the end of the day, that's just putting us more and more into debt, right? And to me, this next quarter, we're going to see something's going to happen. And I think it's to do with China, and which is my other slides, and the Evergrande real estate thing. Okay, this is Washington first. So I put it up for Washington because we're involved with this pact with Washington, US and the UK. Okay, so for the Washington, the ingress here, Saturn is in the 1st house, right? But it's square. It's actually square the MC. So so the MC is always the president of the country, or the prime minister of the country, or the government overall, or the king or queen, okay? So this is where authority is. Now, the fact that it's square, it says discontentment, loss of trade, poverty, and ill health, just because it's in that 1st house. And Pluto's in there as well. And remember, the US is soon will be having its Pluto return. So once Pluto turns
they're already
direct,
in it. It's close enough.
They are. It's in orb, right?
Oh, it's 24 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so as now that it's going direct in October, things are actually going to speed up. You know, we're going to see more of the Pluto going, right? Which tends to collapse things,
It's going to
destroy
rumble
things,
through.
rumble
Yes.
through and create, it's, you know, eliminate things. It's eliminating things. So there's going to be something happening at that point. So here it's got also Uranus is in the 4th house, and that's not a good. Well, any planet that is in the angles for an ingress chart, they're the most important points in the chart. So for the US, we have got Venus in the 10th house, Pluto and Saturn in the 1st house. Right, that's all to do with power. And politics and stuff. And then Uranus in the 4th house represents the people, the land. So according to the mundane books, it says serious trouble to water companies, mining disasters, explosions in public buildings, difficulties for the government, land, mining royalties and taxation of land values likely to be a source of much trouble. So there could be something to do with real estate in this, right? This is what I'm real estate issues with that energy there as well, and property. So the next slide is, I think, the UK.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just reading something. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this is for the UK. So the UK has got angles, isn't it? See how they've moved around for the US. Uranus was in the 4th house, and the Saturn Pluto was in the 1st house.
UK's really got a big parades going on.
Right. So these are the different angles. So they're all being, the angles of these, especially UK and US, the outer planets are in the angular houses, which is telling me, this is when I say, okay, right, this quarter is very significant. Right.
Yeah.
So Uranus on the 1st house, which is conjunct that 1st house cusp, denotes strikes, rioting, anarchy, violence, which is happening pretty much everywhere, violence among people, outrages against authority. It was usually connected with strikes, assassinations of all kinds of rebellions, which is happening. Okay, and Saturn in the 10th house denotes disgrace, disasters of many misfortunes to royalty, the government, and those in authority. Deaths of eminent people, illness, and death among royalty, especially if Saturn is afflicted. Now, Saturn is afflicted because it's 45 degrees from Neptune, which in the midpoint, like Eberton says, that's a sickness, depressive aspect. That's when you get sick, okay? And depression, which is not good for the stock market. So in my view, my personal view, and looking at the charts, this next quarter is going to be very difficult for a lot of countries, and the stock market will also have a major shake-up shock factor happening to it, which I've been alerting people to on Twitter as well. So, and I believe it's going to be the Evergrande in China. Okay, so this is already rattling the markets, like on the 21st, right on the equinox. They said that they might not be able. They're so indebted. That's $300 billion of debt. Like they may not be able to pay it, right? So that will affect a lot of people and a lot of countries, a lot of banks, the whole structure of that financial stuff. Apparently 70% of Chinese are invested in property, right? Australia will be impacted because there's always that relation between China and Australia, either with supplying the steel, whatever they're building with, right? And also the banks. So if you look at the chart for China, I've set it up for China. I just think that this one, because the Sun Mars is in the 2nd house, which is to do with money, obviously, and the trade, and the Neptune is on the cusp of the 8th house. So I reckon they're going to go into bankruptcy. Okay, because Neptune dissolves everything, right? So if I'm correct, it's going to be another Lehman Brothers event, which in 2000. So this is just I put.
What have I done? Sorry. I was
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
there you go, back there.
yeah, I can't read all that writing. It's a bit but anyway, if people don't know about the Evergrande, you can look it up. It's basically the biggest real estate, one of the biggest real estate developers in
Right.
China. They own, I've just written it down here so I wouldn't forget it. They own more than 1,300 properties and in 280 cities in China. Right. So
they own the world.
So there's a lot of things they're saying. If you read up on it, it's called the credit crunch. It's like it's going to have a ripple effect. That's what I think. I'm not
like
confident.
It makes it's a little bit sort of familiar to something that happened a long time ago.
Yeah, it was 13 years ago, almost exactly 13 years ago, the Lehman Brothers collapse, right? That happened because of they filed bankruptcy on the 15th of September. And that was to do with the subprime mortgage crisis. It's always to do with real estate or mortgage, or basically people couldn't pay back their loans. They gave out too many, too quickly, too easily. And then it just boom, 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 right? And in that time, that day, I think it said the Dow dropped 4.5% on that one day. Now, the other day on the 21st, when we heard about this Evergrande thing, the market, I didn't think it, I forgot to put a chart up, but I don't think it was as severe but they haven't said that they're bankrupt, right? They're not going for bankruptcy yet. If that's the case, I don't have confidence in what's happening in the chart for it to be positive. I think the Chinese government was going to try to bail them out and say to the people, investors, it will be okay. But with Neptune going into that 8th house, I don't think that's going to be the case. Okay, so it's interesting here. When I look back 13 years ago, looking at the charts, can you see where Mars is in the Lehman Brothers chart? It's at
Right.
17 degrees of Libra, right? And
well,
so
Mercury's retrograding all across that. All across that Libra.
All right. And so, Mars is like, if we want to look at a repeat, like a Mars return, I mean, obviously that's going to happen every 2 years, but because this is coming up in the news, Mars will be at exactly 17 degrees Libra on the 13th of October.
Yeah.
Right. So the 13th of October, I've already alerted people on my Twitter feed, is an important date for Bitcoin. So this might be a trigger. All right. So I'm just putting it.
And important for Bitcoin because Saturn's back on the nodes, or
no? It's a planetary transits to one its important midpoints, right?
Yeah.
And so that's going to be triggered on that day, and this happens to be the same time that Mars gets to a previous area. So I don't know. I want to put these up there because we need to learn from studying these.
Yeah, for sure.
And 13 years is important because it's actually the Jupiter Neptune meet every 13 years, right? And that is
it's like going overblown and then going way too far, isn't it?
It's like a bubble and then collapsing, right?
Yeah.
So 13 is a good 13 years. It's 13 years, right? So we need to look at these things. I don't think October is going to be a good month, and we've got all those planets going station direct, where everything that's been maybe under the surface is not revealed, especially Pluto, it's just going to come out. We're going to know stuff. We're going to know the truth. And then everything's going to go, oh, I wasn't going to say, I was going to swear then. I was going to swear then. I've got to.
You just not just at my place at the moment. We're actually live out there. We're not having a chat in my room. Anyway, let me see. What am I saying? Sorry, my son's interrupting me. I was just, when you talk about Bitcoin, of course, it was birthed in January 2009. So it's very close to this time and sort of came out of the chaos of all of this, or was being planned before that. But, it's just really interesting to have that Saturn-Uranus opposition there, and Bitcoin has a Saturn-Uranus opposition much more tighter. So, you know, we're
Yep.
living in these Saturn-Uranus times where, you know, there's so much to sort of battle against to, you know, the chaos or our freedoms, you know, again, all the representatives of both of those.
Yep.
So this is when they then eventually collapsed. We got Neptune on Uranus there.
Yep. Yeah, no, this is like the same. This is just putting the Lehman and then Evergrande on the 21st. But yeah, so you can see how I suppose people don't know what this dial is, but sometimes all you have to look at is that see how the Neptune on the outer wheel has see when Lehman Brothers collapsed, that's the inner dial, and you can see I'm pointing the pointer to Uranus, right? There, and that comes to the midpoint of Saturn and Pluto, right? Saturn and Pluto is major losses. If you look at Eberton's book, major losses, okay? Saturn major losses because Uranus is there. Now, Saturn at the moment is across the dial on the outer wheel, Jules, on the outer wheel.
Out here? Yeah. Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
Right, and so that's still the same. That's activating that past event. Neptune is on the outsiders also because Neptune and Saturn are 45 degrees. They've been in that pattern for a long time. People forget about the eighth harmonic, which is one of the most powerful things. Okay,
Yeah.
so that Saturn Neptune is depression and sickness. You know, like, and it causes things to fall apart basically. And so it's interesting that that's all happening. But I think once Mars makes it to that 17 degree around on the outside, comes around, that will be an important point with this. Okay. That's what I believe. But anyway.
Ooh, October's pretty hairy.
Yeah. And so
and this is the Uranus Venus line that you put onto, you know, from the equinox chart onto the map. Yeah.
Because these are all the countries that are involved. And I just think it's amazing. So you can see it going through London and Europe, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Through
and
Africa.
then you can see culminating over China, which is part of the whole over China, Jules.
Oh, sorry, China. Oh, yes, here.
Yeah, yeah. And then you can see it also culminating over Washington, right? So this opposition, which has to do with the money, negotiation, debt, whatever you want to call it, people are saying to me, I can see what people are saying in the comments. You know, there's this big thing about the global reset. You know, they're talking about the World Economic Forum that we have to go through a global reset. So what they're planning in a way is to destroy the economies of every country so that they're in such a bad situation that they're going to be dependent on the one world government.
Yeah.
Right? So in a way, you can see that happening. You can see that happening through all the lockdowns. So small businesses are being destroyed, right? And the economy in nearly every country has been pretty much destroyed. We owe debt. We have so much debt. So, you know, the governments are going to then say, okay, well, I need help.
We need more resistance.
Exactly.
And this is Saturn in Aquarius to me, how much control is coming onto our freedoms, but at the same time, our job to remain as, you know, free people in this world is to put up resistance, you know, where we can. So it's you know, the signature of, I mean, this is how powerful planetary signatures are, is that they say so much in just, you know, one thing.
What I put up a thing saying it's Saturn square Uranus. It's either you surrender to Saturn, right? Because he's the controller, the time master, or you uprise with Uranus, right? And that's what people are experiencing. Am I going to give into this, or am I going to uprise and fight for my freedom? And that's what we're seeing everywhere in the world. And a lot of it's, you know, these pharmaceutical companies who are making out of this whole pandemic.
Who are doing well out of all of this.
They're making the most money out of everybody in the world, right? But I've been looking at the Pfizer chart for a while, and I've been telling people something's going to come next year.
Well, look at their 29 Aquarius.
Yeah. So their first trade chart was on the 17th of January. 1944. Now, this is from Bill's book. If you haven't got Bill's book, I'll just promote it for him a bit.
Good. Well, he's up next at the Academy, CIA. So our favourite Bill Meridian.
Yeah, Bill's got a book on planetary stock market, and he's got all the first trade charts. Hold on, here's the thing.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so you can look. Yeah, so that's where I get my first trade charts from.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so they're going to, Pfizer's next year coming up. They've already had a taste of this Pluto to their sun, and also the Saturn to their node. So these are big cycles that they're experiencing.
Yep.
And I think that next year, because Pluto's been going on and off, every time it goes on, there's some sort of a low in their chart. We might hear more news about what's happening to people because of the vaccines, the adverse reactions, which is a lot of them. And that there's going to be some sort of issue there, a major issue. I mean, they've just come out this week talking about they had a medication to help people stop smoking. And in the last 10 years, they've just now discovered, oh, sorry, it's actually going to give you cancer if you have that. 10 years, right? So there's stuff that we don't know yet, or some people do know, trying to speak up about it. And I don't want to get into a big debate about this because we're just going to get flack about it. But I like to see if a company's chart's going to have a hard transit, something's going to give. All right. So just come back to me next year and we'll see what happens.
Saturn on the South Node, yes. Karmic, very karmic. Something, Pluto on the Sun. You know, I mean, that's just the, what do you call it? The incredible power that they hold over, and especially Pfizer being known as a vaccine that just needs to have, you need to have more of it to be effective. So kind of keeping you in the loop for forever. So, you know, be very careful out there, everyone. It's not all what it seems, for sure.
So you can see the forthcoming Pluto to the Sun next year. And and also they've got the biggest, largest criminal history fine. Pfizer was in 2009. That date comes up sort of, you know, around that time. They had to pay a criminal fine of $1,195 billion, right? For whatever so.
You know, what's criminal about the amount of money involved there is that these people can pay the fines, right? This is what's always gotten me. So, oh, well, we get fined, we know. We just make another 50 million, billion to pay for our fine. And I mean, you get, you know, the corruption in that sort of standards and stuff is, you know, let's not get into it, make us angry. But anyway, very good to be aware of, hey? Now, what's this one here? Oh, this is the chart of Australia from Ed Tamplin's rectifications that he did many years ago for the first time the English ships landed in Botany Bay. So we got the sun, it was at sunrise, 5 degrees Aquarius, 7 degrees is exactly where Saturn is right now, isn't it?
I know.
So not surprising, Australia's not having a good time.
That's for sure.
But again, what we've got to remember about Saturn is, like we mentioned earlier, you know, from what we see, what we don't like about the structure, it's like, well, who voted this government in? Where is another good, you know, where is our kind of a hope for a good government anywhere? You know, I mean, in the world in general, like what is this system that we are all sort of taking part in? Because it's clearly not, you know, not the best one. Or anyway, just again, you can get so political about how things go, but Saturn is pretty brutal for helping us understand what we actually do need, right? More, you know, and getting rid of what we don't want. So again, you know, resistance to the things that we allow to happen as well.
Well, you know, by the time it gets past Pluto and its own Saturn return, right? We've still got another 2 years for all that to happen.
Well, again, then we get Pluto coming through here over the years. Of course, we've got Jupiter, Saturn coming through all these first again. So yeah, keep an eye on that space, hey? Ooh, Olga. And now this one. What's this one? You added this map.
Oh, yeah, no, because remember that there was a big thing on the internet, and they said that Australia's from outer space is the
Oh,
island now.
yes.
It's
Right.
back to penal conditions, and so I found this chart, and it's just got all the different areas, every territory, every state, and when it's a cute little chart. I mean, really, but I
Oh, I
just put it up
see.
there.
Yeah, cool.
Every area that's got a date on it, and if you want to do research, you need to. I haven't done. Isn't it funny? I haven't done really a lot of research in Australia's chart. It's only because we're in this situation.
Yeah,
that
I
I'm
mean, it
thinking,
makes you really want to look
you want to
everywhere,
look at it
doesn't it?
because
Yeah,
because we have
yeah.
Ed used to do it all for us. He was our
He
mundane
was our
astrologer.
go-to man, and we just
Yeah,
miss
he
him
he
dearly.
he would do all the work for us, so we just read his articles. And
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just put that in there. It's not important. Not important.
Anyway, well, we're carrying on as best we can, Ed, with your legacy,
Yeah,
our knowledge. So
he
let's
always.
just.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Olga. What?
No, he did. He always gave me lots of compliments about my mundane astrology,
Yeah,
so I love him
yeah.
for that too. Because
It's not a
not mate.
place where a lot of people go, really,
No,
but
no,
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. But it's growing. I think it's growing, thanks to people like us.
Yep.
Anyway, and Rod Chang's doing a whole mundane astrology courses, and again, I mean, I've always loved it too. So again, so I just wanted to show you. This is the chart for the next eclipse coming up in the quarter. We're not going to get into it now because we'll do another session on the eclipse, but pretty much the solar eclipse. So we'll do another transmissions for the eclipses coming up. So 12 degrees Sagittarius. And as we can see how significant, like it is actually happening all at the bottom here, underneath Africa, South America, and, under here in Australia. So anyway, again, interesting kind of combinations there. And then the Capricorn Solstice chart is a doozy with Venus retrograde beginning on that day, conjunct Pluto. And just 3 days after, on Christmas Eve, Saturn and Uranus have their third exact square. So, and then interestingly also Mars moves back into what we call the nodal axis. And, the whole COVID, saga started when Mars and Jupiter went into exactly the south node back at the beginning of 2020. I think it was February 2020. So Mars has done a full circle by that time. So that's really, really interesting, something to watch. Again, more information about Venus retrograde starting at the CIA, at the Academy coming up in November. Look, we will do more work on that. And I just wanted to say, so the Saturn-Uranus square, that will be the third exact one. If we think that's the last one, we're far from it, because still in October 2022, we do not have another exact square in 2022 of Saturn-Uranus, but look how close they are.
Yep.
Right? They're still within the 1 degree. There's no exact one, but look, it's in the partile, 1 degree. Yep. So, Saturn and Uranus battle is still with us for a while. And I think a lot of us astrologers will say, oh, there was 3 and it's in December. Well, it's still going on into 2022. That's another story, and we'll leave it for another time. So anyway, prepare yourselves, everyone. Look, there's quite a lot of questions about, Bitcoin and what to do and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you one thing, that we will be implementing taking Bitcoin on the CIA site. We just haven't got around to that. So keep an eye out for that. Just looking at can you see the comments if there's anyone there that you want to answer, Olga, while I say this? So what's coming up for us at the Academy, CIA Academy? Like I said, you get about 2 new ones every month, or, overall 20 plus a year. And the next one we have is with Bill Meridian, and we've asked him to do a talk on the Uranian astrology, which is all about working with what they call the hypothetical planets, and they're planets that are mathematically worked out mathematically, but also to do with midpoints. Correct, Olga?
Well, they're hypotheticals, and you can use them, as midpoints. Yeah, they're called planetary pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. So I pick out things that I think that there's not enough information about, or a lot of the crew of younger astrologers. Things that I want to know. I want to know more about how he uses them, what he does. He says he's used them, all for 30 or 40 years or so, and uses them very much in predicting what he does with astrology and markets and so on. So I just really found it interesting. This one's Admetos, and Admetos is at 3 degrees Gemini, and they move very slowly, like about 1 degree, like Pluto, if I've sort of tracked them, and vary a little bit. But 3 degrees Gemini is, of course, where the node is right now. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and Admetos, this is what, it says, indicates deep or low locations, the act of going down, or the process of reduction. Admetos will shrink or reduce the numbers, military groups, skinhead movements, religious cultural groups opposed to the government, develop and grow through this cycle. So it's really interesting that is conjunct the North Node at the moment. There's another one up here. What's this one called? Zeus, which is, I don't know, find out more about it. Could be a little bit of homework. And he's called the creator god, as Zeus was. But Mercury retrograde goes over that. So anyway, I'm just kind of another level of astrology that you can add to these. But again, we've summoned one of the masters, Bill Meridian, Agent 72. So do join us for that. There'll be more information about that on our website. I'm putting a link in here in the chat for all of you that would like to learn more with the CIA. So join the Academy, lots of great stuff. You can ask more questions of all of us, in chat rooms and all that type of stuff. So, and then we've got one on the October the 17th on the science of the Sabian symbol. So we've got some really great artistic things to announce at that time or before then. So keep an eye on what we're up to. And where's my next slide going? Here we go. And yeah, so really, if you like what we're putting out, we really encourage you to join us with a membership and support the work and the network. The new website is going to be fantastic and able to do a lot more. So I feel really kind of relieved, Olga, because what's the word? I can relax a bit now. Yeah. That we've launched the website and done this. So, thank you so much, Olga, for joining me today and all your, the
my pleasure
for us. Yeah. So hopefully we'll do something again soon. We are going to launch one of the agents' fabulous artwork. We won't tell you any more about that, but in about 2 weeks. So that will be our next live event. So from really serious stuff to really creative stuff, that's what you get here at the CIA. We really want to encourage you all to take astrology further. And be confident in using it and make it part of your lives. This is our mission, to help you along that journey. So thanks again for all of you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Keep well, keep your immunity strong, and October is very much about the time to rebalance those scales in so many ways. Okay, so stay together, keep cool, keep calm, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Happy equinox. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.